America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network.
Please subscribe to the show at Salem Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. Now it's time for our interview with Ed Renzi. Ed spent 32 years in the McDonald's organization, helping create the fast food industry as we know it today. He helped to create items like the Chicken McNuggets, the McChicken sandwich, the legendary McRib, and he was even instrumental in implementing the value meal. He's also owned his own race team within NASCAR and so much more. Ed, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Well, glad to be here. You guys do a great job, and looking forward to the conversation.
Well, Ed, you're kind of have a very interesting story because didn't you start with McDonald's? I mean, as a kid, flipping burgers and work his way up and worked at minimum wage?
I was going to college at Ohio State University, and I needed money badly because I had just gotten married. I had found out I was having a baby come along, which shocked the hell out of me. And I had to get a job, and I was carrying a full load at school. So I walked out of Arps Hall, which was a college of education in Columbus, and went across the street, and there was a red and white building there that said help wanted. And I walked in and I said to the guy, his name was Ed Brown, he was the general manager. I said, I need a job. What do you pay? He said, we pay 85 cents an hour. I said, yeah, but the minimum wage is $1. He said, I'll pay you cash. I said, okay, whatever. So I went to work for McDonald's at that point, making 85 cents an hour. About a month later, I got elevated to $1 an hour. And I worked 80 hours a week because I needed $85 to live on with rent and everything and a new baby coming. And I worked there for 32 years. Every time I turned around, I got more responsibility. I was given teaching, education, supervision, had great leaders. Ray Kroc and Fred Turner built a great organization that really focused on the development of their people. And I was blessed. I worked hard, I have to tell you, and I love the hospitality industry. So I didn't know it at the time. In fact, I'm glad I never taught school because I don't think I have the patience for what these young people need today. I don't think I'd have been very good at it. I might have been, who knows. But it was a great career, and I loved having Ronald McDonald as my boss.
So, Ed, you mentioned Ray Kroc and having worked with Ray Kroc. That must have been an amazing experience as well. You know, there was a movie that was put out. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see it, called The Founder.
Yes.
And actually talked about Ray Kroc and McDonald's. But, you know, they the left, the movie industry loves putting capitalism in a very, very horrible light. It describes kind of Ray Kroc as not the most straightforward person and honest person, but I can't imagine that was Ray Kroc from what I've heard, that's the Ray Kroc that really existed. So tell me, was it more fiction than not what was described in that movie?
I thought the actor that played Ray Kroc really captured his essence and spirit. And people ask me all the time, how accurate was the movie? And I said, well, the movie was accurate probably to the point of 85%.
Okay.
There was only one thing in that movie that I really seriously objected to. And it's like this. Ray Kroc was an entrepreneur. He failed at more things than he succeeded at, but he never gave up. And he was a consummate salesman. He wanted to help everybody all the time. And a little side note, he visited me in Washington, D.C. when I was a field consultant. And I took him around visiting McDonald's restaurants. And he said, Ed, do you own a house? I said, no, I can't afford a house. I'm living in a condo and I'm paying, X amount of dollars a month. I just can't afford the down payment. I can't afford to buy a house. And so his birthday was in October. That October, this was about August. In that October, I got a stock grant for him from him, his personal stock of $12,000 worth of stock. And he said, buy a house, Ed. It's the most important investment you'll ever make in your life. And that was the level of his generosity.
Wow.
On Father's Day and Mother's Day, he would send gifts to all his employees. He sent me a brass knob umbrella on Father's Day one year, which I still have. It's out in my backside of my office right now. He's one of the most generous men I ever met in my life. He was an entrepreneur. He was very serious about taking care of his people, and he did not suffer laziness very well. He wanted people to work hard. And if you look at his history going all the way back, he was a very honorable man. He told you the truth whether you liked it or not. In fact, I went into a McDonald's restaurant with him one time in the D.C. area, and he walked up to the store manager. He said, I want you to take down all the prices off your menu board and give anybody who walks in here, give them their food for free. And the manager was shocked, and he comes out to me and said, Ed, here's what I said, look, he's the founder of this company. He's telling you take those menu prices down, and you take them down and give everybody who walks in the food free. So Ray comes back and sits down with me, eating his strawberry shortcake dessert, which he loved, and I said, Ray, why did you tell the manager that? He said, well, the food's so bad, I don't think we should charge for it anymore. And that message wasn't for the manager. That message was for me. Pay attention to quality, service, and cleanliness. That's the core of our business. The one last thing on that movie, at the end of the day, talked about the fact that Ray cheated the McDonald's brothers out of a handshake agreement for royalties in perpetuity. That is a flat lie. No lawyers in their right mind, even back in the 60s and 70s, would ever let anybody sign a contract like that. If it's meant to be, it's going to be in the contract or not at all. In fact, I got to be with one of the Mac McDonald's, or Dick McDonald's, I'm sorry. Later on, I served him the 1 billionth hamburger in the Waldorf Astoria on a stage setting with a grill set up for the 1 billionth burger. And he and I had a long conversation about that. And I said, how was your relationship with Ray? He said, I was very jealous because I really wanted to do what he did. But my brother got sick, and we thought we could make a lot of money by selling the company. And they did. They got quite a bit of money for the company at that time in those dollars. So I think Ray was a very generous man. I'm a product of his ethics. I'm a product of his desire for excellence. And he talked about that constantly at every meeting he ever had, every convention he ever had. He valued the franchisees. He valued the employees. And he knew that he was successful. And he used to say this all the time. None of us is as good as all of us. And we need each other to grow and develop and learn and be successful. And he made a lot of millionaires in this country. You look at all the franchisees, you look at the company executives, you look at the employees. In fact, Lou Groen's son, Paul Groen, is retiring from his work at McDonald's, and his daughter's taking over the business. And that's the third generation of Groens in Cincinnati owning those restaurants. In fact, the daughter's running a restaurant that I opened in Beachmont many, many years ago. That's the legacy of Ray Kroc, great generational opportunity. And I wish more businesses in the United States were that way. We've gone so digital that I don't know how in the world we're ever going to be able to develop those generational opportunities.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Ed, for clarifying that, because that sounds more in line with what I've heard of the real Ray Kroc. So I'm glad you kind of set the story straight on that movie. That's important. And two, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the franchisor model, because I think Ray Kroc was kind of one of the visionaries that I'm not sure if he actually is the first one to develop that idea or the one that really took it big and wide. Can you kind of explain to folks that are watching or listening kind of how that model operates and how McDonald's really was able to help folks achieve their American dream through that model?
Well, there's you need to understand the essence of business. In the restaurant industry, there's three major components. There's occupancy costs, which includes rent and building the building and the depreciation, amortization, utilities and things, taxes and things of that nature. Then there's food costs, food and paper costs, serving costs. What's it cost to make the food, sell the food, package the food, and deliver the food? And then there's the human resource side. And that component is your employees, recruiting, training, developing, and managing those employees. They're each about 30% of cost. So that leaves the typical restaurant about a 10% profit. The closer you are to the customer, the better the customer experience, the better able you are to build sales. And if you don't have fixed occupancy costs and you have a $20 million restaurant, I guarantee you when your lease is up, the landlord is going to triple your rent. And that means that your component of occupancy costs is going to go up. And I tell people all the time getting in the restaurant industry, you buy the land and or you get the longest lease agreement you can get with a limitation on what the escalators are going to be every 5, 10, or 15 years, because you'll price yourself out of the market. You go to New York City today and you think about the rent restaurants are paying on Times Square.
Yeah.
And now the sales have been cut 60% because of crime and people moving out of the city and people not going to work. How in the world are you going to make any money doing that? And that's why restaurants are closing. That's why Nordstrom's is leaving San Francisco. You stop and think about this. It's all about economics at the end of the day. Well, the franchisees have their wallet on the front counter every day. And if they don't satisfy their customers, they're the first ones that are hurt. When employees go home at night, they hardly ever think about the business. The great ones do, but most don't. When a franchisee goes home at night, that's all they think about is the business, their people, their quality, their operations. So the franchising model puts a decision maker face to face, belly to belly with the customer every day. And if you get the right kind of employees and the right kind of franchisees, they're going to be fantastic. If you look at McDonald's today, it is as strong and as well run today than it's ever been. Why? How many corporations you know that have a legacy that date back to the 1950s that are still successful? You're talking about a 70-year-old company globally. China, Russia. Well, Russia shut down because of this war with Putin. But McDonald's in Ukraine, McDonald's in the Middle East, McDonald's in India, South America, Mexico, Asia. It's a utilitarian opportunity for entrepreneurs. And every one of those countries basically is franchised. So that it's a business model that absolutely works. And if you look around the United States today, car washes are doing that, restaurants are doing it, hair salons are doing it, because none of us are as good as all of us. And when you got multiple thousands of franchisees, they keep senior management honest because they'll call BS faster than anybody because their wallet is on the front counter.
Hey folks, Elaine Parker here from Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. National security experts are warning. Our aging power grid is more vulnerable than ever. January marked the third time a power station in North Carolina was damaged by gunfire recently. Authorities are saying the attack, quote, raises a new level of threat, unquote. Authorities are now checking our grid for vulnerabilities. They've identified 9 key substations. If these substations are attacked, power could be knocked out from coast to coast for up to 18 months. Imagine a blackout lasting not days, but weeks or months. Your life would be frozen in time right at the moment the power fails. Lights all over the country would go out, throwing people into total darkness. That's why having your own solar power is more important than ever. With the Patriot Power Generator, you get a solar generator that doesn't install into your house because it's portable. You can take it with you, even use it inside. But it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, or even your fridge. And now you can go to 4patriots.com and use code STREET to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. You'll also get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. And a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code STREET to get 10% off. Ed, I know that you've talked a little bit about franchises, and I've read that McDonald's is mostly franchise. It's about 90%, last I read, are franchised stores. And over the last few years, there's been a lot of attacks on the franchise industry, and we've been involved in it in trying to support that, because the franchisees are essentially small business owners, whether they own one store or 100 stores. They are independent small business owners, business owners. And I know what the union is trying to do is essentially make the franchisor liable for the daily decisions and hiring decisions of those franchisees, which would actually just erase that sort of separation between the franchisee and the franchisor. I'm just curious, we've been involved in that fight for a long time. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I've been gone from McDonald's for over 20 years now. I've got friends that are still McDonald's franchisees, so my knowledge is from 60,000 foot these days, not intimately. But I've been involved in the franchising business. I was running Famous Dave's Barbecue. I was on the board of Grey Wolf Resorts and a number of other companies, and I stayed very close to those people. I now do a lot of consulting work with restaurants on how to elevate their operations and capture customers and what have you. And when we think about labor in restaurants today, we've got to ask ourselves a serious question. Are the labor unions that are advocating these changes really representing the employee, a college kid working for tuition, a single mother that's got a need for taking care of their baby? Who and what are they representing? And you got to think back to when the Lordstown plant went on strike with United Auto Workers outside of Cleveland, Ohio. That strike went on, and it was a very nasty strike. And ultimately, General Motors started putting robotics into those plants. And if you look at the automobile companies today, the United Auto Workers and companies like that have really lost a tremendous amount of union membership because of automation. Well, where are they going to go to support that huge overhead of those operating unions? Where are they going to get new revenue from? They've got to find new union members that they can organize. But what benefits are they going to give to a 17-year-old kid making the minimum wage that's in high school? What are they going to give them? Health care? They're going to give them a pension for life? The unions cannot provide anything to any employee over and above what management is willing to give, or what management can afford, or what the companies can afford or willing to give. Now, I think there's really, my family were all a bunch of coal miners and steel workers back in Ohio in the 40s and 50s. And when the unions were established, focused on worker safety, coal mines, underground coal mines were very dangerous. Steel mills were very dangerous. And they put a full court press on safety. And I think that kind of thing touches all employees in every company. So if unions had stayed true to their essence in their beginning, they might be better off than they are today. But if you look at the corruption that's been in union locals, if you look at the use of the monies that are collected and who's getting paid what, you really have to, and you look at the teachers unions today. I started out, I wanted to be a chemistry and biology school teacher. And I just couldn't handle being locked in the classroom every day. As much as I loved education, I found by going into business, I could educate just as well, but have the freedom to do what was necessary to have the businesses succeed. So when you look at union membership drives today, they're surreptitious in a lot of ways. They're not straightforward. Are they focused on employee welfare? Are they focused on safety? Or are they focused on dues collection? And when they go to legislators and make huge campaign contributions and say, we need to have automatic union membership after 3 months of working on a job, it's nonsense. It's legislative slavery, in my opinion. Now, it's modified slavery. You get to work for somebody else, but you got to pay somebody else. And what is a union going to do for a minimum wage worker working in a restaurant when they're 17 years old? What are they going to do for them? They're going to pay their college tuition. They're going to pay their health care. So the functionality of what they can actually do to help their members is grossly limited. And that's why they're struggling so hard today. I think unions originally had a great reason for being, but employers are a lot smarter today. They're not going to abuse their employees because employees are the number one asset they have in a company. Without employees, you can't do anything. Without their wisdom, their creativity, their drive, you can't succeed in business. So you need to nurture, hug, and caress all those employees. You don't need a union getting between you and them, because all the unions are going to do is drive up costs and no benefit to the consumer.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I mean, you're absolutely correct on that. I mean, so many words of wisdom here to try to break down, but first and foremost, what frustrates me about the way the Democrats really kind of leverage, I guess, this idea of an us versus them mentality, when every single small business owner that I speak to, every single business owner that I speak to, whether small, medium, or large, they understand that their employees are number one. Without the employees, they have no company. And so this thought of that, they're capitalist business owners, entrepreneurs are these like evil doers. It's just such a fallacy, but they love trying to make sure that narrative keeps getting played out because they want to drive that wedge between employer and employee, which is so unfortunate. And the other thing I think, to your point, is that unions definitely had a purpose, I think, years and years and years ago. But I also think the internet has really, once the internet has been introduced and social media, it's really served as the great equalizer. I mean, if you are actually doing wrong to your employees, I am telling you, within 30 minutes, right, the world knows. I mean, it's you don't need a union anymore to make sure that you put the pressure on the employer if the employer is treating their employees wrong. And so, at least from my perspective, right?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't like the polarization of union, non-union, Republicans, Democrats. I don't like polarization even a little bit. The Republicans and Democrats are almost identical. They both have the same ultimate goal, and that's power and control. They approach it differently, but that's essentially where you're at. So I ignore the political arguments all the way around personally. I'm independent. I vote for people that have great ideas, great leadership skills, and are active in trying to do right every day. Now, they're all going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I look at DeSantis. I live down here in Florida. We just had this hurricane coming, and after what happened last year with Fort Myers and the tragedy down here, boy, DeSantis, I don't care what you think about him, that man is a leader. And when the hurricane hit last year, he knew how bad Fort Myers was. And he had everybody go to work, and they did a recovery on the barrier islands and built a road faster than mankind could ever imagine could be done. And this
2
hurricane
days.
was coming. Yeah, exactly. And this
2 days.
This hurricane hit just this week. And he was on television immediately. He said, I'm suspending my campaign. Here's what we're going to do. I've talked to the highway department. We're suspending all tolls on the roads out of town. And he had a whole checklist. It was like he was back advising SEAL Team 1 in the Middle East during combat. Right. This man had a plan. He was ready to go. And he didn't give a damn about politics. He didn't care about the election. He only cared about doing his job as the leader, functional leader, the spiritual leader of the state of Florida to make sure the citizens were taken care of. I want leaders. I want people that don't give a damn about self-interest, but care about others. You know, you can call it Christian, you can call it Muslim, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But the reality of it is we will be better people if we do more for others than ourselves. And, you know, I want leaders. This isn't about Republicans, Democrats. It's about a representative republic called the United States of America with a Bill of Rights, a Declaration of Independence, and a Constitution that puts us above everything as people, above everything except deity. And, you know, one nation under God, indivisible for all. And that means all. That doesn't mean skin color. That doesn't mean language. That doesn't mean point of origin. It means every human being is a gift from God, and we need to be smart about how we manage the most important resource this earth has ever had, mankind.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, you brought up Governor DeSantis, which made me think of the boardroom initiative that we started last year. And I know you are you co-chair that for us in taking on kind of the whole woke big corporate culture. And one of the first issues that we dealt with was one Governor DeSantis was heavily involved in, and that was that fight with Disney on the Parental Rights Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, this is a very difficult thing to talk about in a lot of different ways. I made a statement just a minute ago about this is a country for all. My personal belief is you get to be who you are in this country as long as you don't break the law and you don't harm others. The lifestyle you choose from a sexual standpoint, dietary standpoint, who you associate with, that is your privilege and your right under our Constitution. And I will support you. I will support your free speech. But don't yell fire in the theater with me around unless there's a fire, because I'm not going to be a happy camper. We don't get to hurt each other. We don't get to hurt ourselves either, by the way. And that's one of the problems we got with drugs today. People have no idea how bad that's hurting ourselves. So, you know, I don't understand what the word woke means. We've got people in this country that are different than me from a sexual standpoint, from identifying as a male or female. That's their privilege. If they want to identify as anything they want to identify, I'm good with that. But what I don't want is the tyranny of the minority. I don't want 3% of the U.S. population to dictate to 97% how they must behave, what their values should be. That ain't the way this country works. I don't want a tyranny of minority to oppress the majority. Don't harm others. If a minority tries to force their lifestyle, their beliefs on children who are in the middle of developing their own personality, that is wrong. And when you got an organization like Disney, which I have the utmost respect for, it's a very good company, it's been well run, they got trapped. I think they made a mistake. We shouldn't crucify people to make a mistake unless it's really deserving of that level of punishment. There should have been a conversation. When you get out on the extremes, you're going to get extreme reactions. And, you know, that's what happened with Disney. You know, and this is a belief that I have that I got from Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize economist. I had lunch with him one day a long time ago in San Diego. And he and I were talking about charity and business, because I'm a big advocate that corporations ought to be involved in charity. And I'll tell you why in a second. But I was, I think, 38 and he was like 59 or something. And he said to me, "Young man, it is not the province of CEOs to take shareholder dividends or money and invest in charities that the shareholders don't agree with. Give the shareholders the money in dividends or stock growth and let them decide whether they're going to put their money for charity."
Right.
And it was an argument I was having about Ronald McDonald House. It's one of the most fabulous charities in the world that's operated by independent group people with the support of the McDonald's franchisee. It's a wonderful, wonderful charity helping families that really need help. And I said to him that you look at that as charity. I look at that as McDonald's getting caught doing something good for the community, which is our customers. And how can you go wrong supporting children with health, education, and welfare? That elevates the entire society. It's a gift to the entire society. If the shareholders don't agree with that, they can sell their stock. They can vote against the board in upcoming meetings. But corporations should not dictate their shareholders what their beliefs are under any circumstances. So when Disney did what they did, I thought the CEO was out of bounds. And if I had been on the board of Disney, I'd have had a serious performance review or had a conversation in that boardroom about policy decisions that involve social engineering. Corporations got no damn business getting involved in social engineering. Support organizations who are exporting that. I'm all in favor of that. I'm all in favor of organizations that support Hispanics, support blacks, support gay people. I'm all in favor of that because they all need support, just like Ronald McDonald House supports parents who have very sick children. That makes sense to me. But what Disney did, I think, stepped over a line very, very quickly. And it's unfortunate. That caused them no end of problems because then they took off after DeSantis in this parental rights bill, which was an education bill, said parents have a voice in how their children are educated. Well, that steps over the line when they say they're going to fight it with everything they have so it doesn't get passed. The citizens of Florida wanted it. And by the way, just like with Anheuser-Busch, Disney, the shareholders voted.
Yep.
And now they're paying the price for it. Look at what's happening to sales at Anheuser-Busch. Tragic, unnecessary. You can champion people for who they are, but not necessarily what they are.
Yeah, I think those companies definitely heard from their customers, and the CEO that you're talking about of Disney isn't there anymore. So the board woke up.
I think he got bad advice, frankly. I think the people around him should have had a conversation with him before he did what he did. He should have consulted with the board. So if there was a lapse in judgment, it wasn't in trying to do the right thing. It was trying to do the right thing the wrong way. So I'm a big fan of forgive and forget. You do it once, I'm going to kick your ass, and let's move on. You do it twice, you're fired. If you don't learn the first time. So I think, my choice of words was bad because I actually said he should be fired. My choice of words should have been there needs to be a conversation with him and the board about future behavior because he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a bad executive. He got trapped. He tried to satisfy his employees more so than the shareholders or the customers. And your customers come first, your shareholders are second, and your employees are third. That's the way it has to be. However, if you don't take care of your employees, those other two can't go well. It's a perfect triangle. It's isosceles. All three of those components must work in harmony.
But Ed, we really are seeing the social engineering from our chief executives in the boardrooms, with ESG type of, focus and, firms like BlackRock that really are driving a lot of this. I mean, how do we, I guess, prevent that or work around that? Or, what is the fix for that? Because we just seem to be nonstop. Even though you have lessons like Disney and Anheuser-Busch, that doesn't seem to be stopping the BlackRocks and other companies out there from doing this.
Well, I think that this is an avalanche that's gaining speed. The corporations and shareholders are beginning to realize, largely because of what happened to Disney and Anheuser-Busch, that they better be very, very careful. In fact, I heard recently that BlackRock is backing off of the whole area that we're talking about right now. They're a big, huge private equity company with trillions of dollars under management. They have a big influence on what boards of directors and shareholders see, know, and hear. I think the tide's turning. It's like everything else in the world. The first thing out of the gate, you go like hell, and then you get into the long race and you realize you better slow down, take it easy, eat well, sleep well, behave well, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And these corporations are all beginning to realize, trust me, there's nobody going to do anything with quote unquote woke without the board of directors being involved anymore. It's over and done with. There's been too much market equity lost. And you even think about the USA as corporate USA, and look at the CEO of corporate USA, Joe Biden, and look at what his policies, practices, and procedures have yielded us in our great major cities. I love New York City. I love Manhattan. I love everything about New York. I love San Francisco. I love LA. I'm a big city boy that grew up in a small town of 900 people, and I love that town too. But the reality of it is they're hurting the citizens. They're hurting the communities. And look at Nordstrom's, one of the best managed companies on the face of the earth. They're being run out of town by two-bit criminals because there's no consequence for misbehavior. Yeah. I mean, I had my grandmother used to say, when I smack you on the butt, I'm trying to get your brains back in your head. And she was Italian and she didn't say it that way, but that's what she meant. If you don't have discipline, if you can do anything you want to do, anytime you want to do it, any way you want to do it, you no longer have social order.
Right.
New York City no longer has social order. San Francisco no longer has social order. D.C. doesn't have social order either. If it wasn't for the federal government there, that thing would be in chaos as well. Philadelphia's in trouble. Chicago's in trouble. Businesses are moving out. People are leaving. The migration to Florida has been staggering from these states. Why? Look at what's going on in Texas. You got two states, and there's others like the lady in North Dakota and South Dakota. There's some great leaders out there, and those states are prospering exponentially because of leadership. We got year over year probably close to 20% inflation. You look at restaurant prices today. Restaurant prices are up dramatically. Sales are up percentage-wise on dollar basis, but transaction counts are down. There's fewer customers spending more money, so we're sorting out the bottom end of the economic scale out of restaurants for the upper middle class and upper class. When you've got upper middle class and lower upper class eating at fast food restaurants, and the people that should be having an opportunity there aren't there anymore because they can't afford it, it's a problem. And I'm not just talking about fast food. I'm talking about every restaurant. I'm talking about car washes. I'm talking about hardware stores. I'm talking about every small business in America, nail salons, barbershops. They're all hurting dramatically because they've had to raise prices so high they have fewer customers. It's not a good formula for success.
Yeah. No,
the product and value have to be in balance.
Yeah, it really is just not working. And so, you provide so much insight, Ed, to folks in this industry. You're also a small business owner, is my understanding. So talk to us a little bit about your consulting group, actually, and some of the great work you've been doing.
Well, I'm 79 years old, pushing 80. And my philosophy is pretty simple. The work of children is play, and the play of adults is work. I work because I love people. I love to see things grow. I love our country. I want to share my wisdom with others so they can not make the mistakes I made. And believe me, I made a lot of them in my life. Some of them I regret to this day. But the reality of it is working and doing consulting work is fun. I could care less about the money. I want the people I'm working with to have the level of success I had. I want to pay back Ray Kroc, Fred Turner, Mike Quinlan, Jim Cantalupo, Bill Hockett, Brent Cameron. I want to pay all my leaders back for the great gift they gave me of wisdom, intelligence, understanding, and kicking my butt when it needed kicked. which is also very important because sometimes you can get off the railroad tracks and somebody doesn't put you back up on there, you're in trouble. Because if you don't care where you're going, any way will get you there. But if you care where you're going, there's only one way to get there.
Yeah. And where can people find out about more about your consulting group, Ed?
I don't really want them to find out about my consulting group because I don't want to get busy. My wife used to be a McDonald's franchisee. My wife passed away, and she and I, my current wife and I, got hooked up about 3 years later, and we got married 9 years ago. And she got out of the business. Her son owns a number of McDonald's restaurants today, and he's an outstanding franchisee with outstanding restaurants at a great corporation. And I really envy what he's doing because I probably should have done that when I left McDonald's and retired, is become a franchisee, because then I could do it hands-on.
Yeah.
But my consulting, what I do is I try to get people to understand that they can do more than they think they can do.
Right.
And I'm working with one company in particular that's got 5 outstanding restaurants. It's a great ownership group. They want to grow. And I'm giving them a pathway to grow to 50 restaurants in 5 years. It's a goal we set. And I'm showing them how they have to elevate culinary, elevate their training, education, and supervision of their employees, and elevate the facilities so customers feel welcome every day. And it's easy to say and it's hard to do, particularly if you have tight budgets and you don't have resources. But a smile is inexpensive. A kind word is inexpensive. A gesture is inexpensive. If you're positive and forward-looking and willing to help every way you can, you're going to grow success. Because ultimately, we're in an anthill, and all of us ants are living in there together, and we've got to help each other. Or we're in a beehive. All of us have a role to play. Some go get the pollen, some build the wax, da-da-da-da-da-da. Our job is to support one another for the common good of the community and be rewarded accordingly. I think everybody that does a great job ought to get rewarded.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences and your point of view on things. I think we could listen to you for hours. So I appreciate the time today and joining us on Main Street Matters, America's Small Business Megaphone.